8 years on the school board, I have supported policies that include greater school site autonomy and a school performance framework that looks at a range of indicators for student, school, and district success. I think the school performance framework is really crucial for a lot of the conversations that we want to have about education across the city. I know there's going to be a question later on charter schools. I think we need to have common metrics that we're using to compare schools and think about what's happening well and what could be happening better in schools. I've pushed for budget transparency, and I've authored policies that require greater community engagement. So I see a role for school site decision making, and while I support the autonomy of school sites and parent and student engagement, I also see an important role for the central office in providing support and making decisions in times of urgency. I also think that there's a role for standards in terms of what students learn, particularly the mobility that we see between schools. There are a lot of families who move, and sometimes they're able to keep their kids at the school that they lived near last year, and sometimes they're not. And it needs to be the case that if you are in first grade at Sankofa Academy and for some reason your family moves and now you're going to be in second grade at Grass Valley or at Howard or at Crocker Highlands, you have the same material. You're starting from the same place as the kids who were at that school the year before. So there's got to be there's a role that we have to work out. There are some agreements that we have to work out. But I do think that there's a lot that we can do to make sure that families understand the role of the different school governance organizations, particularly the school site councils, and for schools that have parent-teacher organizations or PTAs, those as well. I would like to see us actually have a citywide PTA council. PTA council isn't the right word, but we need a place where parents can come together to talk about things like, does your school have a walkathon and how do you organize that? We don't really have that right now. And then I think that there's also room for staff to be involved and teachers. There needs to be room for everybody, and I think we have a lot of those structures in place. We just need to build them out, continue to refine them.
Danielle?
Good afternoon, Jody London. I'm Danielle Mackey. I'm an OUSD parent and member of the United Family Building Community. There are over 49,000 Oakland students in public schools, for which about 12,000 attend charter schools. OUSD has recently announced an initiative called the Equity Pledge, which is meant to create a new culture of cooperation between district and charter schools. As a result of this cooperation, new agreements can be created to address equity issues in a number of areas between district and charter schools. Ultimately, it should strengthen public education across the city. Equity issues do exist across district and charter schools, and that addressing these issues head-on will ensure a higher quality education for more students. GO believes that cooperation between district and charter schools is not simply best practice, but is necessary for a healthy Oakland. Everybody will have to and should make compromises on behalf of students. You will have 4 minutes to answer two parts of this question. First, do you support the Equity Pledge Initiative? Why or why not? Second, do you believe that you will hold some responsibility towards charter school students? Why or why not? How will this affect your decision as a board member?
Thank you. I'm very interested in the Equity Pledge, and I'm following the work in that area quite closely. I have been asking folks who have complained about charter schools for many, many years, what do you think we should be doing to reduce the demand for charter schools, if that's something that bothers you? And I feel like the quality school development work gives us that framework, and that's why the school performance framework is very important. But I think it's very important to establish a framework within which district schools and charter schools can coexist. I'm a realist, and charter schools are here. They're part of the landscape in California, and we need to figure out in Oakland how we're going to get along. If the Equity Pledge is the place that we can do that, then that's great. Until I see the agreements that are reached, I can't, absolutely say that I'm going to endorse it, but assuming that things work in a way that there's a lot of moving pieces to it, I'm inclined to support the Equity Pledge. I also believe that there's room in the process that's happening right now for more involvement from parents and community members. This is a very sensitive endeavor. It's subject to intense political scrutiny. All the participants in the work should welcome involvement from other voices. So it's important to me that it be an inclusive process that lets everyone in who would like to be part of it. And then on the topic of charter schools, I've been very outspoken about my opinion that we have too many schools in Oakland. Most districts with 48 or 49,000 students would operate 65 or 70 schools, not the plus or minus 125 that we have in our city. And the board received information recently from an organization called ERS that's been comparing Oakland against other cities. And these metrics are true, and there's certain things that make it very hard to operate effectively when you have as many schools as we have. And that's in the charter sector and in the district sector. Both are double the number of schools they probably need. So we must agree that we have enough schools in Oakland and focus on improving education at the schools that we have. This is where the equity pledge becomes very, very important, as well as the school performance framework, which I talked about earlier. And I do feel a responsibility toward students in charter schools, but quite honestly, state law has some limits on how far I can reach into a charter school. Charter schools under state law have their own boards, and I have to respect that. The place where I have some authority with charter schools is in authorizing their charters and then renewing those applications when they come up for renewal every 5 years. So recently, for example, with KIPP, I was able to, I think, make some changes in a facilities lease agreement that we were entering into that was very helpful. KIPP, as you know, has kind of swapped with Lafayette, and KIPP is moving to the Lafayette campus in West Oakland, and Lafayette is moving over to the West Oakland Middle School campus. KIPP wants to build a new building, and they have some funds they're going to bring to the table. But KIPP, when the first agreement came to us, was not going to be using union labor.